everybody. My name is Barb Smith, and I'm your host for Find My Team Conversations. And we have Nancy Clark with us today. And Nancy is a nutrition counselor, a sports nutritionist, a workshop leader, and consultant in the Boston area, who I met through a mutual friend. And she helps active people and athletes alike learn good health, high energy, and improved performance. She has a guidebook out, sports nutrition guidebook, that has sold over 800,000 copies. Oh my gosh, Nancy, that's awesome. She helps numerous athletes learn how to manage food, weight, and energy by finding the right balance of food and exercise. This is perfect because this is what we are, student athletes. She enjoys offering sports nutrition workshops to health and fitness professionals as well. And her goal is to help you win with nutrition. And a fun fact about Nancy is that most of our nutritional information on our website comes from Nancy's expertise. So Nancy, thank you so much for being here. We so appreciate you taking the time to help us in this nutrition journey as part of being an athlete.
Well, I'm honored to be here, and I also welcome the opportunity to help educate up-and-coming athletes or those that have already risen up, just how to resolve their nutrition confusion. It's a crazy nutrition world out there, and so hopefully this, will give us an opportunity to help people eat to win.
I love it. I love it. There's so much misinformation. There's so much, one day it's this and the next day it's that type of change with nutrition. So how did this all begin with you? How did you become an expert nutritionist?
Well, it started actually when I was in high school. I went away to boarding school, and one of the jobs, every student had a job, and my job, often one of my jobs was to cook in the kitchen. And so I was doing this quantity cooking for, 100 people or whatever. And I really liked it. It was like, oh, this is fun. And so I knew I wanted to make that a part of my career. I went to college at Simmons University in Boston, where I majored in nutrition. And I decided to go the dietetics route as opposed to the cooking route. Did an internship in dietetics, worked for a bit, and then went back to grad school at Boston University, where I got my master's in nutrition with emphasis on exercise physiology. So this is back in 1979, 1980, when sports nutritionists didn't exist. So I had a lot of educating to do. I saw the importance of it. And prior to going back to grad school, I had worked as a nutrition educator, and I was giving workshops to teachers and to coaches and teaching them nutrition that they could pass on to their students. And when I was working with these coaches, it's like, I need to know more about how nutrition and exercise combine. So that's what inspired me to go back to grad school and get, that background in exercise physiology. So I was also doing a lot of hiking and biking and cross-country skiing. I was pre-Title IX, so I was never like an athlete the way that today's high school kids are. But I certainly was athletic and just interested in sports personally. So I just combined my personal interests with my professional interest of working with more athletic people, and my career just sort of, it was being among the first sports nutritionists. I had a lot of educating to do because people say, like, what do you do? Like, spaghetti for marathon runners? It's like, no, I help people do more than that.
Well, what is your, okay, so we at Find My Team, we cover all sports, all genders, so it's all different seasons of time of year and all that in training. What would be your, what's your overall approach just to nutrition? Just broad approach over all those. I know there's more specifics, but just as like a general rule of thumb.
Well, my broad approach is that food should be one of life's pleasures. A lot of people are just so afraid of food these days because it's fattening. But no, food should be one of life's pleasures, and food is fuel. I talk to way too many athletes who are trying not to eat because food is fattening. It's like, no. food is fuel. And the same way, if you have a car, you put gas in it, it goes. If you have a body, you put food in it, it goes a lot better. So like I say, my philosophy is food is fuel. It should be one of life's pleasures. And also that you need not eat a perfect diet to have an excellent sports diet. And I talk to way too many athletes these days who have just, they like no sugar and no red meat and no birthday cake and no fun foods. And they just think that if they have this perfect diet, they'll perform that much better. But in the end, they end up either binge eating or being so restrictive that they lose way too much weight and they just aren't properly fueled for their sports.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. One of our blogs that get the heaviest hit on our website comes from your sugar debate thing, and
Mm.
how we are over like scared of sugar, and you know sugar's a bad name, and you just make it sound so refreshing that it's okay to have some sugar in your diet, and even some of it is good. So I
Yeah, I mean,
appreciate
the,
what your messages are.
the dietary guidelines say that 10% of calories can come from sugar. So if you're an athlete who's eating 2,500, 3,000, 4,000 calories a day, I mean, 10% of that, 250, 400 calories of sugar, I don't even blink an eye. I mean, keep in mind that within, say, 1,500 calories of a variety of quality foods, you can get all the vitamins and minerals and protein you need. So if you're eating 4,000 calories and you try to do that on apples and broccoli and oatmeal, you just don't get enough. It's like I spend a lot of time saying it's okay to have an oatmeal raisin cookie,
Yeah.
it's okay to have some carrot cake,
Yeah.
it's okay to have some chocolate, and it's like really. So it's educating the athletes as well as their parents, because sometimes it's the parents that set up the food rules for the house. So it's just we 85 to 90% quality food, 10 to 15% fun food. And if you have a cookie, it does not negate all the good stuff that goes into your body.
Good,
And
because I had some ice cream last night, Nancy, and I'm feeling guilty today.
I hope you should not feel guilty. It's one thing if you didn't have lunch, you didn't have dinner, and then you ate the whole pint of ice cream. But if you had a quality lunch and a quality dinner and just wanted a little bit of a treat, some ice cream, it's okay. It's okay. It's not going to matter 5 years from now. It's not going to ruin your health forever. So it always comes back to moderation.
Yeah.
And I get concerned when people are so busy dieting and trying to be the lightest athlete that they have coffee for breakfast and a lettuce leaf for lunch and train on nothing. And then they get so hungry that the minute they have access to food, they eat the whole thing of Oreos, the whole thing of ice cream, the whole thing of potato chips. And that's the problem. Getting too hungry is the problem.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
when people get too hungry, they crave sweets. They do not want apples. They want apple pie. Yeah.
Right. So help us understand, okay, because there's so much misinformation about this. Carbs, fat, protein, not protein, only carbs, no carbs, only protein and fat, low fat. Does that really mean low fat? Like all of those, there's so much information out there. So what is the right mixture, and what place does protein, fat, and carbs?
Well, we tend to eat food. We don't eat carbs and proteins and fats. We want a balance of quality food. So when I'm counseling my clients, one, I estimate their energy needs, like how many calories are they supposed to eat? And most of them have no idea. So say you take an athletic high school female, could easily need 2,400, 3,000 calories a day. So take those calories and divide them up into food buckets. And so you got a breakfast bucket, a lunch bucket, a fuel up, refuel bucket, assuming that they're training in the afternoon, a dinner bucket, and maybe a snack bucket before bed. But in each bucket, in each meal, you want some sort of protein to build and repair your muscles. You want some sort of grain to fuel your muscles, some sort of fruit and or vegetable. I glump fruits and vegetables together for vitamins, minerals, and some sort of dairy or calcium source for bones. So kids need to know how to count to 3, if not 4, when they're looking at their plate. And so if you have a plate, you've got your protein, your starch, your vegetable, you've got a yogurt for dessert or a glass of milk. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 different kinds of foods, and that will give you the right balance of carbs and proteins and fats. But if you're thinking carbs are fattening, I'll just have chicken and broccoli for dinner, you aren't going to be fueling your muscles properly. So that protein builds and repairs muscles, but it doesn't fuel muscles. And so with each sports meal, grains, fruits, vegetables, those are all carbohydrates, should be the foundation of the meal. So you want spaghetti with meatballs as opposed to a little bit of spaghetti with a lot of meatballs. It's putting the focus on the grain foods. And I try not to use that word carb because it is just so tainted. I mean, people go, oh, carbs are fattening.
Right,
For
right.
I've been in sports nutrition now for 45 years. And when I started, they were fattening. And today they're still fattening. Uh, all my educational efforts have never sunk in.
Oh my gosh, I love that. Well, okay, so with athletes, student athletes in high school, college, this is kind of the same deal now, but there's so much to do. Schoolwork, meetings, extra workouts, sometimes community service with their programs and class and homework and travel. How can they juggle? How can they make a good nutrition system, for lack of a better word, for them? How can they make that work with being so busy?
Yeah, well, one, it is true that they are incredibly busy and they just need to be responsible. And as the one, I gave a talk to the hockey team at Boston College. And afterwards, the coach said exactly what you said. Nancy, these athletes are so busy. They show up for homework, they show up for quizzes, they show up for exams, they show up for physical therapy, they show up for training. They don't show up for food, as if food is optional. And he said, if they don't show up for meals, they might as well not show up for training. And it is so true. You just have to make the choice to be responsible.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. So
Sports diet, it doesn't mean that you have to sit down and eat a properly cooked dinner, as you might have, in a restaurant. Maybe if you're traveling on the road, again, you need to be able to count to 3, if not 4. So say you're doing grocery, gas station nutrition. So you get a yogurt, you get a banana. So you've got your dairy, you've got your fruit, you get maybe a bag of almonds for some protein, or a protein bar or a protein shake. And you get some, maybe you get, some sort of grain, be it a bagel or some pretzels or a granola bar. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 different kinds of foods, and that can be a well-balanced diet. What I see is people just grabbing a protein bar.
right.
Well, that gives you protein. But protein bar plus banana plus yogurt, plus some nuts or something. So you can be eating on the run and still eat well, but
Yeah, I
you
was
just
thinking,
get that variety.
I was thinking of all those travel teams, you know, in the summer, travel teams, concession stands that have, you know, some of them have sandwiches, but a lot of it is chips and sodas and hot dogs and, you know, popcorn, pretzels, you know, the baked
Mhm.
pretzels, their pizza slices. What kind of go through the gas station thing again there with their
So
options?
the pretzels would be carbohydrate that would fuel the muscles. Pizza, I mean, there's pizza and there's pizza. I mean, pizza can be a very healthy food if you're getting it, you know, the meat lover's delight with double cheese. It's like you're fat loading, you're not carb loading. So, you know, it comes to being responsible, planning ahead. So the biggest problem is most athletes these days, they know that it matters what they eat. They say, oh, I know what I should do. I just don't do it. Because when you're too hungry, you don't care. You just want food. And it doesn't matter what it is. And so you grab the hot dog and the double bacon cheeseburger and the nacho fries. What it tastes delicious. Because when you're hungry, you want concentrated calories. So the solution is to prevent hunger. And that means front loading, like having a good breakfast before you even leave. Or if it's in the car, you have a bagel with peanut butter and a, you know, a thing of orange juice and maybe some hard-boiled eggs. But you've got to be responsible. You've got to plan ahead, have a cooler so there's food in it. And if the parents, you know, parents love to bring cookies and stuff, so bring oatmeal raisin cookies.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
you can bring banana bread. I mean, you can things that have a healthier quality to them than, you know, the sour cream coffee cake. So
Healthier. I like it.
so
Healthier.
I spend a lot of focus on front loading. And that means having a big breakfast. It means having a good lunch. And then if they're training in the afternoon, they have fueled up. And then they have the energy. And then afterwards, they aren't ravenous so that they eat dinner. But it isn't just like, give me food right now. I mean,
Right.
the monster hasn't appeared. So it's important to understand the physiology of hunger. And when I talk to my clients, I use this analogy. You know, if I were to stick your head underwater and keep it there too long, when you popped up, could you breathe normally?
No.
No. You'd be gasping for air. Well, if you sleep through breakfast and have a lettuce leaf for lunch, you know, when you're presented with hot dogs at the hot dog stand in the afternoon, can you just walk by it and opt for a turkey sandwich? It's like, no way. You just want concentrated calories. Yeah. So the trick is just to prevent that. And when people can front load and fuel up and do a good job of fueling up, then if they've already had quality food. So then if they have a treat on top of it, it's like it's not a big deal. Like I say, if you don't have meals and then you eat a whole bunch of, you know, foods with low nutrient density, that's not so good. But if you have meals and then a fun food, you know, the balance is different. The balance is different. But it's the students, the question comes down to whose responsibility is proper fueling. Is it the coaches? Is it the parents? Is it the athletes? Is it the schools? And somebody needs to take responsibility. In the teams that really work with food, they tend to excel. I mean, I've had many talks with coaches who got their whole team on board and you know, fueling optimally, and they have phenomenal seasons.
Yeah.
Um, and so it matters. It matters. Yeah.
So that leads me to like pre and post game. So pre-game meals. Okay, so we had breakfast. It was a good breakfast. Pre-game, post-game, and some of these athletes have two games in a day. If it's summer, you know, two games a day. What's your pre and post-game nutrition expertise say?
Well, the mentality is an athlete is either fueling up or they're refueling afterwards. So if they're training just a normal day, training in the afternoon, they fuel up at breakfast, they fuel up at lunch, they have a pre-exercise snack, they're ready to go. And then with dinner, they refuel. If they're doing double workouts, they're fueling up, refueling, and they have to really get their act together and have the food there so that they can rapidly refuel. If you're training or exercising again in 24 hours, you don't have to, get obsessed about rapidly refueling. But if you've just played one soccer game and you're playing another one in an hour or two, you want to rapidly refuel. And you want to make sure that you've got some watermelon and some pretzels and a turkey sandwich and have that food there so that you can refuel to get ready for the next event. In terms of what to eat, it really varies on what a person can tolerate and what their likes are. So part of training is to train the intestinal tract so that the athlete knows, oh, if I have an orange before practice, it's like, oh, that's too acidic. But if I have a granola bar, that settles well. Or if I have a bagel and peanut butter, that's perfect. If I have just a little packet of oatmeal, it's not enough. So that part of training is to train the intestinal tract so that the athlete's stomach is used to having food in it. Because we know that the best fueled athlete will outperform the hungry athlete. In terms of what, if it's, a morning soccer game at 10 in the morning, then maybe they have oatmeal, maybe oatmeal with peanut butter and banana in it. Maybe they have an English muffin with, an egg and cheese English muffin sandwich. Maybe they have a bagel with hummus. I mean, it really, it's what they're eating on a daily basis is what their stomach's used to it. So that before a game, you don't want to do something terribly unusual with food. You want to sort of the tried and true things. But definitely to be responsible, get up early enough. And the bigger the meal, the more time you want to digest it. If you know you're not going to eat breakfast in the morning, then you have your breakfast the night before. Like many hockey players or swimmers, they train so early in the morning. And so it's like, oh, my stomach's not awake. Well, have your bowl of cereal the night before when you go to bed. And then that helps to prevent your blood sugar from dropping overnight. Because overnight the blood sugar drops. And so if you don't have much for breakfast, then you're going in underfueled.
Yeah.
And you'll just feel better, perform better, be perkier, enjoy the event more if you've got if your brain is well fed and your muscles are well refueled.
Great advice. Great advice.
So someone's training in the after or having a game in the afternoon. Again, their breakfast should be tried and true. Their lunch should be tried and true. The foods that take longest to digest tend to be heavy, fatty, greasy things. Nachos. Pizza with double pepperoni and extra cheese. Burgers. Those sort of things tend to be heavy and settle heavily. But, there are people that break all the rules. Some people have cast iron stomachs and they can eat anything. And others just like, whoa, they're afraid to eat. And it's the ones that are afraid to eat. They need to experiment during training to learn what can they tolerate. And if they really don't want much within the hour before they exercise, then they need to focus on the meals earlier in the day and get those calories in earlier so that they'll be all digested and just ready to help them have a high energy competition.
I think that's great advice because it's not one size fits all or one food fits all, or you really are saying you can like, try things on, try different foods and see what fits for you and have that be your system, your method. So it doesn't have to look like everybody else's if it's not
Yeah.
what fuels you basically.
And if you're traveling, you can go to any fast food restaurant these days, and they have options. So there are grilled chicken sandwiches. There are bean burritos. Like, to get the most amount of healthy calories for the least amount of money, you go to Taco Bell and you get their bean burrito. And for
I gotta
people
write
that
this down.
for
This is
people that
good.
are eating beans, that's fine. Others, it might be like, whoa, I'll be gas propelled. So again, you have to practice during training to figure out what settles and what doesn't, and to know your body. But I have athletes that just always bring their own food because they know they don't want to have to second guess, and they don't have to worry about running out of energy. And so when you know that you're well fed, then you don't have to fret like, oh no, did I eat enough? Or oh
Right.
no, where am I going to get something to eat? Just be responsible.
And then let's just talk about preseason, during season, and postseason. Does your nutrition need to change? Does it change? What is your opinion on, your in season versus postseason and preseason?
Well, my opinion is that the body can intuitively regulate this. So if you listen to your body. So the example is, let me just let me show something here. Okay, so this is just a little bit of sports nutrition education here. So you can see this, okay?
Yes.
This is from my sports nutrition guidebook, and it just talks about glycogen and glycogen replacement. And as we know, glycogen is carbohydrate energy that's stored in the muscles. So when you exercise hard, you deplete it. And if you come back and have protein, as in a protein shake, protein and fat, as in a chicken Caesar salad, those foods fill your stomach, but they don't refuel your muscles. If you do hard workout and come back and have carbohydrates, so you come back and you have a bagel, you have banana, you have cereal, you have thick crust pizza with single cheese and veggies on top. You have a sub, like a turkey sub or whatever, so that you get the carbs with some protein. You want 4 times more carbs, 3 times more carbs than protein. Chocolate milk, excellent. Some protein, a lot of carbs. And it's within that first hour or so after you exercise that your muscles are most receptive to refueling. But it can take up to 2 days to fully refuel. Now, if you've been training hard, 3 days in a row, your glycogen stores go down. So this study was done with college students. They were eating plenty of calories, just too much protein, fat, burgers, fries, nachos, maybe a little bit too much beer. And they did a very poor job of refueling after 3 days of hard exercise in a row. And so if you're training depleted, just know that it takes time to refuel. Now, the reason that I'm showing this is that, just for an example, the summer before I went back to grad school, I was a leader for a group, and we rode our bikes across America. So every day I was biking 60, 70, 80 miles, with carrying the load, everything on my bike. I doubled my food intake. I was eating at least 4,000 calories a day. And then the bike trip ended. It was a wonderful thing to do. So if anyone wants to go on a bike trip, I highly recommend it. Bike trip ended, and the next day I was in grad school, and I was sitting there, and I was eating. I was hungry. I was just used to like 4,000 calories a day. And I go, whoa, I haven't done anything all day except for sit here. And I was eating. And I go, oh no, this is going to be a problem because I just like to eat. And then the third day, I was full. My glycogen stores had replenished. So it takes up to 2 days to fully refuel depleted muscles. So what people need to know, the season ends, the first day they'll be just as hungry because their muscles are refueling. The second day, they'll be almost as hungry. And then when their muscles are fully replenished with their glycogen stores, their appetite will just drop if they listen to their body. But
Interesting.
many people don't listen. But it's important to figure out why. I mean, a question that I ask my clients is, why do you stop eating? Do you stop eating because the food is gone? Because you're content? Or because you think you should? And most athletes stop eating because the food is gone and they think they should. And they don't even stop to think, am I content? And then they're just kind of like hungry, hungry, hungry all the time. And then they go and they blow it and eat the pan of brownies. And then they get up the next day and they're mad at themselves. Oh, diet breakfast, diet lunch, and then they blow it at night again. So again, there's a vicious cycle that I see. So when I work with my athletes, I give them a calorie budget, tell them how much is important to have for breakfast and for lunch and for pre-exercise so that they fuel up adequately. Then at nighttime, their body will tell them how much they need. The body is the best calorie counter. I mean, little babies don't count calories. Toddlers don't count calories. They eat when they're hungry. They stop when they're content. They weigh what they weigh. They never run out of energy. And they eat when they're hungry. They stop when they're content. And if they want just half a cookie, they'll eat a half a cookie. Then they give the rest to their mom, and mom stares at it. It's like, well, I'm not even hungry, but I better eat it. And so things get so easily dysregulated.
Right. So,
And
so
it,
the whole thing about, there's this whole story about eating small meals a day versus big meal, like 3 big meals or 6 smaller meals, and having, try to keep your metabolism going with the 6 meals. Is there truth in that as well? Smaller meals, more of them, bigger meals, less of them.
well, the approach that I take is people get hungry every 4 hours. So what you eat at breakfast, if you have breakfast at 7, by 11 o'clock, you're ready for lunch. And if you have breakfast at 7 and at 9 o'clock, you're ready for lunch, it means you didn't have enough breakfast.
Okay.
And then you have a snack, you have the rest of your breakfast. But I think it's better to eat and be fed and last for 4 hours. So if your breakfast at 7, lunch at 11, then by 3, which is most people are going into practice, they're ready for a second lunch. So I get rid of the word snack because snack is usually not high quality, nutrient dense foods.
Right.
And I have a second lunch. And so, and they might split that second lunch into fueling up and refueling. So maybe their second lunch is an apple and cheese before they practice, and maybe some pretzels and nuts afterwards, or they just go home and have dinner or whatever. But if you don't have snacks and you eat every 4 hours, and you know that your meal should last you every 4 hours, then that gives a template for success. But if someone is always grazing, a lot of people say, oh, I love to graze. I just graze. Yeah, because you're always half hungry. Why do you stop eating? Oh, because the food is gone, or I think I should. You want to stop eating because you're content. And if people have a calorie budget to know, oh, when I eat 500, 600 calories for breakfast, oh, this is how I feel. I feel fed. Versus if I just have an English muffin for 150 calories, it's like, oh, I'm still thinking about food. So if people are thinking about food all the time, it means that they're hungry. If we didn't think about food, we'd never think to eat.
Hmm.
And so, a question that I ask my clients is like, how much time do you spend thinking about food? And the right answer is, well, before lunch, when I start to get hungry, I think about it. But other people say, oh, I think about food all the time, 99% of the time, or I'm embarrassed to say how much time. And they think about food and they watch food programs on TV and they love to look for recipes. And I mean, that's all happens when people are too hungry. Yeah, it's fascinating.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
Yeah.
What about male athlete versus female athlete? Are there major differences there? Even with
No, I would say there aren't major differences. I mean, the one major difference is that if you've got a, 240-pound basketball, a football player, that person needs a lot more liquids, a lot more fluids, a lot more water, and a lot more calories than does the, 100-pound gymnast or ballet dancer. So just in terms of size, the bigger guys have, higher caloric needs. Protein needs are based on your body weight. So for most high school athletes, I'm looking at anywhere between 0.75 to 1 gram protein per pound. And most people get that very, very easily per pound of body weight. The ones that are not getting enough protein are the ones that are saying, oh, I'm vegetarian, and they stop drinking milk and yogurt and eating cheese, and they don't really like beans or tofu, so that they live on pretzels and bananas and apples. And like, where's the protein? Where's the calcium? Where's the iron? Where's the zinc? I mean, where's a whole bunch of stuff. And that said, there are vegetarian and vegan athletes that do an excellent job of balancing their diet. So it comes down to nutrition education. But if you have an athletic person that eats a lot of calories, they will get the protein that they're needing, even if they're a big hulky guy, just because if you're eating 4,000, 5,000 calories a day, you can just get what you need. But if you're just a petite little, wisp of an athlete, you might not be getting the protein that you're needing. But it comes down to nutrition education. It comes down to being responsible. And there are many ways to fuel a body. There are many ways to fuel a body, and there's not a right or a wrong way.
I've worked with just another question. I worked with a couple athletes that have celiac disease and some that are gluten, intolerant. And those are words and things that I didn't even know growing up. That these athletes have these kinds of issues now. Is this something new, or now they understand what it is, and how can those athletes really make sure they're getting what they need?
Yeah, to be gluten-free today is so much easier than it was 10 years ago. I mean, you can just go in most restaurants and get a gluten-free pizza or gluten-free bagels. So they can be thankful that if they are gluten-free, that there are a lot more options for them these days. There, whether there's more celiac or whether it's more better diagnosed now, I'm not sure I know the answer, but it seemed that there are a lot of food sensitivities and allergies. And, it used to be that everybody would eat out of the same pot. You'd have like pasta dinner with spaghetti and meatballs, and everybody ate it. And now you have a buffet where you have you've got the spaghetti, you got the gluten-free spaghetti, and you've got the tomato sauce, and you've got the the turkey meatballs, and you've got the vegetarian meatballs, and I mean, and you've got, you have, just every meals that can be assembled to suit everybody's different dietary needs. And so buffets, like say, are helpful with team dinners, so that there are options. Burrito bowls are popular, or putting together stir-fried things. But it can be frustrating for people. It's like, oh, you're the one we have to have gluten-free for, or rice or
Right.
potato. It just helps you be more creative.
Yeah.
It need not be a huge problem. It's just an inconvenience. Yeah.
All right. Okay, one other question here. High school athlete transitioning to a college athlete. The training is going to be different. The time management, you're going to get pulled a little bit more possibly in college. The training though is 10 times harder, and the school is 10 times harder, read more with less time and all those sorts of things. Does nutrition also change with that?
Unfortunately, nutrition tends to change in the wrong direction.
Great.
So most athletes are perfectionists. And so they want to train perfectly. They want to study perfectly. They want to get perfect grades. And they tend to want to eat perfectly. And sometimes they eat too perfectly and get carried away and go down that slippery slope into an eating disorder. And those seeds were planted in high school. But in college, it's very easy to feel out of control, to feel inadequate, to feel imperfect when you start comparing yourself to others. And people tend to control. There's one thing they can control, and that is their food. So I see a lot of eating disorders, disordered eating among the college population. And it is out of the closet. And it's known that men have eating disorders as well as women. It's not just a female thing. It's a perfectionist thing. And you need to have the perfect diet. So, so there's that group of athletes.
Yeah.
For athletes that are eaters, then they just need to learn how to have the right food available at the right time, and stock their dormitory room with jars of peanut butter and boxes of cereal or packets of oatmeal or protein bars or cups of yogurt, so that they have food that's there so that they can fuel their bodies appropriately. But there's a learning curve.
Yeah.
And sometimes weight gain is the freshman 15 is talked
Right.
about.
It's me.
It is. And the more food there is, the more people eat. So in a college cafeteria, I mean, there's a ton of food.
Right.
The food these days is really quite delicious. So the more food there is, the more people eat. The more people there are, the more people eat. So you get the team eating together and there's more people, and it's really easy to overeat. It's like, oh, I'm just waiting for that person to finish. I'll go get seconds or whatever. So again, it comes down to education and having people sort of stop before they get seconds. It's like, does my body need this food? And if I weren't eating now, would I be hungry? It's like, no, if I were not eating now, I'd just be bored or something. I mean, yeah. So it's good that on college campuses these days, most of the colleges have sports dietitians that are working with them. And when I first started, I remember having a conversation with Chris Clark, who was the first sports nutritionist. She was at Penn State, and she was the first Big Ten dietitian to work full-time at a university. And she said, Nancy, there'll never be a job posting for wanted sports nutritionist. I mean, in its infancy, we never thought that the field would have expanded the way that it has. But now so many universities have 2, 3, 4, 5 sports nutritionists. And it's just really nourishing to me to see how the field has grown so much. And so today's athletes have nutrition education, which is important. So when the freshmen come in, they're guided as to how to manage the new food system. And you've probably seen this in your career.
No doubt. No doubt. Yeah. I do have a question though, for you about eating disorders. Let's say you're a high school coach or even a parent and you suspect, but it's an uncomfortable topic, to flat out ask somebody and all those sorts of things. What should high school coaches or parents, I guess, this is kind of a two-pronged
Mhm.
audience, but how can they help somebody that might be on their team or in their family with an eating disorder?
Well, an eating disorder is a psychological diagnosis. It is not a nutritional diagnosis. So disordered eating would just be nutrition education.
Mm.
An eating disorder,
Mm.
generally, I mean, people and athletes are like onions, and there's just like layers and layers and layers and layers. And usually at the inside of the onion is this little scared little athlete thinking, I'm not good enough. And so oftentimes it's an I'm not good enough problem. And that's where sports psychology is really important. It's like, you were good enough to get on this team. And yeah, maybe you're the freshmen and they're the seniors, but you're good enough to be here. You deserve to be here. And, your body will grow and develop, as will your skills. And this is a time to learn that it's okay to be imperfect,
Yeah, yeah.
but
So,
it's a huge shift. Yeah.
so a coach can have the conversation about that with those student athletes and try to help guide them to some help,
Be supportive.
and be supportive.
And just be supportive. And no, we don't compare.
Yeah,
I mean, a freshman should not compare themselves against the juniors and the seniors, but just do the best that they can for themselves, and to be gentle and kind to themselves and not beat themselves up if they make a mistake. It's just part of the learning curve. But
yeah,
um, it's important to just keep asking if you think somebody has an eating disorder, like, are you okay? This is what I see. I see you can barely make it through the workout. I can see that you're getting sick more often, have colds, have flu. Oh, I see you have a stress fracture. Are you okay? You've lost, I see that you've lost that sparkle in your eye. Are you okay? And for 6 times they'll go, oh yeah, I'm fine. I'm fine. And they'll put on their I'm okay costume, and they'll be fine until the 7th time they might break down in tears and just, oh, I'm miserable, I'm so unhappy, I'm such a bad athlete, I'm so fat, I'm so imperfect, I'm not getting all A's, and they just
it will
uh,
come.
admit that they are not happy. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, thanks for that. Because I know that, even when I was growing up, we had some eating disorders, and I know that coaches do deal with that.
Mhm.
Um,
And they do, and at least they're getting the support that they need to deal with it.
yeah,
And that college these days, they do have support groups for these athletes with eating disorders, and they can get the proper care that they need. But
yeah,
remember, it's a psychological diagnosis,
right.
and the coach doesn't cause an eating disorder. You might like tip it, yeah, be the straw that breaks the camel's back. But these seeds were planted a long time ago.
That's
And one thing that I always talk to my serious athletes about is, I mean, they'll come in, they'll say, oh, I'm a rower. And I'll stop them and I'll say, no, you're not a rower. You're a student who rows.
mm,
You're also a son, a brother, a friend, piano player, a volunteer. There's more to your life than being just a rower, and just to have them keep that balance. And with that balance, hopefully they can realize that their whole identity isn't wrapped up as an athlete. And
love that you say that. I love that you say that, because that's what we try to do with Find My Team. We're trying to look at the whole person in finding a college fit. And you have to look beyond the sport to be able to do that. I've got some nature in my back window here with the squirrel up and down, getting lots of exercise, hopefully refueling. But
Yeah.
I love the message to, try to be the whole person and don't lose yourself in the sport or even the athlete, or even for some people, the student, that you're just so much more than that. So I appreciate that so much. How can people find you? I do have the website. I'll put that down below.
They
If
can
people have
easily
questions.
Google Nancy Clark sports nutrition, and hopefully my website will come up. It usually does. Um, and on my website, there's a place called Contact Nancy, and you send me an email, and I'll even respond.
Well, awesome. Well, we just so appreciate your time, Nancy, and your just wealth of knowledge about this, about nutrition and this topic. We could go on for hours because there's so much good information in here.
Yeah,
Um,
and I just want to say that all that
yeah.
I've talked about is available in my sports nutrition guidebook. So I'll just do a little bit of an advertisement here.
No,
But
please do. Yeah, and I'll put the link in the below too.
it's Nancy Clark's Sports Nutrition Guidebook, and it's on Amazon. It could be in your local library. It's very affordable, and you don't even have to read the whole thing. You can just go to the chapter on protein. You can go to the chapter on dieting gone awry, and there are recipes for parents of foods that are, family friendly, fewer than 6 ingredients, nothing weird, but great sports foods that everybody will enjoy. Um, but it is a really handy resource because not everybody has easy access to a sports nutritionist. And I think what I'm proud about with this book is that it's been a bestseller just through grassroots efforts. I don't have an agent, I don't have a PR company, but it's just word of mouth that this is a really good book.
Awesome.
And people have supported it. It's now in its 6th edition, and it's just been popular because it gives people what they want regarding nutrition information.
Well, Nancy, thank you so much for all this information. We'll definitely get your book. We're going to get your book. Find My Team will, and then I'll put it in below. So please go get the book. Ask your questions. It's so nice that Nancy is available to us. We just appreciate what you're doing in educating athletes, because, like we started this program, there's so much information out there that is untrue and conflicting, and it gets messy. So thank you for your expertise.
Well, it's been my honor to be on your podcast.
And thanks to all of our listeners. We will see you again very, very soon.